Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
Guess what, preschool peeps? It's Monday. I felt like a different beginning there. What do you think?
It is Monday again.
I start to vary things like the opening when we record more than one episode at a time. And, at the end of the last episode, we said, well, if you're on YouTube watching us next week, we're going to be in the same clothes because we're actually recording a couple of episodes at a time this time because of our schedules. So yeah, it's true. You are a week apart. We are moments apart from the last episode.
Apart from the last episode, yeah.
Yes. So it's some strange time warp thing, but we're glad to be able to have technology where if schedules don't permit, we can still give you an episode every week.
Yeah.
Or nearly every week when we're not playing lost episodes due to holiday breaks.
Right.
We had so many, honestly, we have so many really great topics in the hopper. And when we were picking this one, we came across this one, we were like that, because there's a whole lot of cueing going on of children and a whole lot less thinking than we would like to see. So that's why we decided to do an episode about resisting the temptation to somehow prompt children toward the answer you are looking for. And this happens a lot. And we realized, we don't think we've ever done an episode about this prompting thing that we've seen happen. Yeah. And what I'm talking about is when you ask a question and you give them a this or that question, which really isn't the best kind of question anyway. As you know from this podcast, the best kinds of questions are open-ended questions where children can answer however they want. You're not looking for a particular right answer. Those are the best questions because children have to critically think. But if you are asking them, sometimes we do ask them is it this or is it that kind of question where they have to pick between two things. And there's a variety of things adults intentionally and unintentionally do to prompt the children. I might say the right answer a little louder than the other answer. I might change my facial expression for the one I'm looking for. I might, what else? I might kind of nod my head a little when I know, even not knowing I'm doing it, right?
Right. It could be subconsciously you're doing it. Yeah. But there's some people who are consciously cueing it. If you're doing it subconsciously, there's nothing you can really, I think, change about that because you're not even aware that you're doing it. If you are aware that you're doing this, please stop.
It's okay for kids to pick the answer that you weren't aiming for. The question, I think people get uncomfortable with that though because they don't know how to handle it. If a child gives an answer, let's say that's a factual question, right? Yeah. And only one answer is right. It's only one answer you're aiming for. I think that adults tend to lean toward helping children give that answer for a few reasons. One is they want them to succeed, and that's great. But the truth of humanity is that sometimes we succeed and sometimes we don't. And when you ask a factual question with one right answer, you have to ask it knowing that it can be answered incorrectly. So that's why we ask open-ended questions, so that there are also questions that have no wrong.
Right. But I feel like if you are asking a question that does absolutely have a right answer, and you are giving them the answer, what are you teaching that child? That child needs to know eventually what the answer to that question is. Especially in math, because I teach kindergarten, so we have math, and they have to do addition sometimes. 2 + 2 = 4. There is no way that 2 + 2 = 5 in any circumstances. But if they put 2 + 2 = 5, and I cue them to be no, you don't want to pick that one, you want to pick that one. Then what does that teach them? They're not thinking. They still will think 2 + 2 = 5 if I'm not there to cue them. I need to teach them how to get the right answer, not to just give the answer.
I think adults just don't know how to respond. And frankly, I don't think they know how to respond when children give the correct answer or the incorrect answer. I don't think that we respond very well to either one. When a child gives an incorrect answer, we can just simply say something like, let's look at it again.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I usually say.
Why do you think so? Why do you think so?
Yeah. Why do you think that's right? And let's try again. Or
Or
maybe
let's look again.
let's look at it again.
Or just re-explain it. And
Yeah.
I also think I if when children give the correct answer, looking at them and saying that's right, and then just moving on.
Yeah.
What we should really be doing is repeating the correct answer. There's a really great video that I sometimes share when I'm doing professional development, where teachers are doing a project with children having to do with the outdoors. And they ask the children, because they learned it during the project, what's the name of a really big rock? And one of the children says, it's called a boulder. And all the teacher did was repeat, it was the correct answer. And the teacher didn't say, oh, look, Jeanette is right. The teacher said, it's a boulder. Just repeated the answer without. And I think that part of the reason why we cue kids, especially children who struggle to give the right answer when we're looking for a right answer, is because we realize, oh, I want this child to be right so much.
Yeah.
Because we've said things like, very good, Joshua. Yes, Mariella is right. And we're attaching the children to the answer rather than just repeating the answer, if that makes sense.
Right. I went to a workshop once that sounds similar to that said instead of adding in the children's names or praising them, instead it's almost like you're narrating it, like a sportscaster would narrate a game. And you're not, like you would be like, if the answer is it's a boulder, you would just be like, yes, it's a boulder. You wouldn't say, hey, Johnny, yeah, it's a boulder. You would just be like, yes, it's a boulder. Not the color person on a sportscaster, but like the people, like a play-by-play.
Right.
And once I learned that, I was like, whoa, like it changes your world a little bit because the kids still respond to it because they still get, the person who gave the answer still gets this like affirmation, like, oh, I was right. But it's just
there's what they said. Yeah. You repeat what they said. So you would repeat what they said.
And everything.
Let's say a child said, I don't even know what would we call a pebble. Let's say you said, what's the name of a big rock? And one child said, it's a pebble. I wouldn't say, no, it's not. I would turn to that child and say, let's think about that. A pebble is a really small thing.
Right. I think I would just, I wouldn't say they're right or wrong. I'd be like, well, a pebble is a small one. Yeah, just explain.
A pebble is very small. Does anybody remember the name? Now, yes, that child's going to know that they didn't give the right answer. But I think you can look at them and say something like, oh, pebbles are so great to play with. You can affirm that they said the word pebble, right? Pebbles are so great to collect and play with. Pebbles are really little, so we can collect a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then honestly, I would not, this is just me, I would not turn to the rest of the group and say, what was the right answer? I would just then give it. I would say, pebbles are so cool because you can collect them and put them in your pocket because they're little. A really big rock is a boulder.
Boulder that you can't, and then you could even say it like that, that you can't collect.
You can't collect it, right? Yeah, I can't put it in my pocket. And I think that there's kind of an art to doing that, to looking at kids and validating what they said, give it merit. Oh, pebbles are so cool. I love to be able to put them in my pocket and collect them. A really big rock is a boulder.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of turn to everybody else and go, does anybody else know the answer?
Right, because isn't the goal to teach the kids the term boulder? It's not the goal isn't to make the kid feel bad because he didn't know the answer and to make the other kids feel bad that they don't know the answer or aren't willing to say the wrong answer. Like the goal is to be like, no, I want to teach them that a boulder is a very large rock. So
we're going back to goals, right? We talked about this in the last episode. What's your goal? What's your goal? If the goal is to teach them that, then it doesn't matter if I say it or they say it. So whoever answers you find a way to kind of validate what they're saying and then make sure that the children have the correct information. And if we're giving, like if we're sort of doing a yes or no question like that, there's a whole lot less critical thinking than the open-ended questions. So you want to limit the yes and no, here's the facts kind of questions as much as you can. In fact, if I want the children, let's say the goal is I want them to know that a big rock is called a boulder, I might not even ask that question. I might say to them, do you remember that a big rock is called a boulder?
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you like the boulders or smaller rocks called pebbles better?
Yeah.
Because we will have learned both words, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give them an open-ended questions. Which one do you like better? But I have reinforced what I want them to know, which is what is each one called. Right. Again, this is I think that this takes practice and it's an art. And to be able to say, here's the information I want the children to know. How can I stick that information into an open-ended question so that I'm giving them the fact I want them to remember, and then they're discussing that fact in a way that they have to critically think. I hope I didn't lose everybody on this podcast now by talking about this. But
no. Well, you didn't lose me. But
oh my gosh, if I lost you, we're doomed.
We're doomed. Yeah.
Alison, stay in your frame. I think practice it. People practice. Yeah. Think to yourself, what's the goal here? The goal is that they know this fact. How can I reinforce this fact in a way that allows the children to critically think? And then therefore there is no cue for me to give, because frankly, whether they like boulders or pebbles doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter to me. And I think those questions are the ones where I give those a lot, like, which one do you like better kind of thing, because there is no wrong answer. And it shows that like their opinion on things matters. You know, like, and it doesn't matter what that opinion is. Your opinion is your opinion, and that's what you like. And there is nothing wrong with liking that. There's also nothing wrong with liking the other option, you know, and it kind of allows them this freedom to be like, oh, I can answer whatever I want, and it doesn't matter. There's no risk here, you know, and I think they need that a little bit, you know, and they need to see like everybody's got a different opinion on things, and we need to value both sides, you know, because they don't need to all have the same liking of the same things, you know.
Times when you're going to ask questions, you're sitting in a small group activity, you're trying to get them to find, I don't know, the letter of their first name, and a child picks an incorrect letter. And when that happens, we need to work with them. We need to say to them, let's take your finger and trace the first letter of your name and what that feels like. Now let's trace the one that you picked. Is it the same or is it different? Right? Yeah. And that's a conversation. And even when I'm looking for a particular thing, I'm going to try and find the conversation and not just look at them and say, you know, Marianne, you picked out an O, not an M. Can you please find the M? We're going to do some work to figure out why what you picked is different than the one that we were seeking. This is, again, helping children to think about, because this time what they're thinking about is the choice that they made, right? I'm not looking at you and going, nope, you're wrong.
You're
what
wrong.
I'm saying is let's examine this, and let's examine the one that maybe we were looking for and talk about how they're different. That's a conversation you should be having. And that's a very, you know, a conversation that leans itself to thought. Let's say you're working with really young children and you have colors out on the table, and you say to a child, can you show me a blue Lego? And the child takes a yellow Lego. What I would do then is I would pick up a blue Lego as the teacher, and I would hold them near each other and say, this one's yellow. And I wouldn't say you were wrong. I would say, this one's called yellow. This one is blue. Can you think of some things that are blue? Because that was the one I wanted, right? Can you think of some things that are blue? And we'll talk about things that are blue rather than just declare it wrong, show them the right one, and move on. You know, all learning is a process. It's definitely a process. And then let's talk about that hallway that Alice and I are always talking about, where we want the children to be quiet. So, you know how many times I've seen teachers stand at a doorway and say to the kids, how are we supposed to, we're going in the hallway, what are we supposed to do? And really, honestly, this is not that sort of teachable moment. This is a moment where we can just look at children, lower our voices and say, we're going in the hallway. Let's remember to be quiet. And then you just stand and wait. You know, when I'm going to ask them this sort of, what should we do? What are you doing? Which one is the one we want to pick? Which one answers my question? It's going to be for cognitive skills. It's going to be and cognitive skills are like the subject areas and the thinking skills. Cognitive means thinking. So it's the thinking skills. The remembering to be quiet in the hallway is just something I can remind them of, but I can ask them thinking skill questions when we're really working on literacy and math and science. And technology and engineering and whatever it is, and
Whatever
art.
it is you're
And,
doing.
art, though, is self-expression, and really they should be making those decisions. But I think that we need to think about, when am I asking questions, and what questions am I asking? Are they phrased in a way that helps children to think about their answers? That's the phrase I was looking for before, Allison.
That's it.
Even
That's
when it's a yes or no question, I want them to think about the answer they gave.
Yeah. And when you're cueing them, they're not thinking about the answer. They need to think through, how do I get to that answer? And if you're cueing them, you took all the thought away, and now they're not processing the question. They're just like, okay, I'll just give the answer that she wants me to give. There's no like, wait, let me think about this. Is it blue or is it yellow? Like, let me think, but like, when you
give the answer they want me to give. Give the answer they want me to give.
And then it's like,
doesn't that like
a bunch of drones.
Doesn't it sum up? It sums up a lot of our education from generations ago. Give the answer they want me to give. It doesn't matter.
Very rote. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was very rote. It was very rote memorization, and it was my education was very, not always. I had some really great teachers, but some of it was, give the answer they want me to give, and then they'll be happy, and I'll pass this class, but I don't have to understand any of it. And frankly, that was like my high school chemistry class was like, give the answer they want me to give. And I today couldn't tell you a thing about chemistry.
Exactly. I was just going to say, how much of that chemistry do you remember?
Nothing.
Zero. Because all you did was spit out answers that they wanted to hear. Now, if that teacher taught you, now I can't give an example because I don't remember chemistry either, because I had that same experience. Okay. But it had the teacher taught you about chemistry more, where you could think about it, I guarantee you could spew out a whole bunch of chemistry stuff right now, but she can't, because it was all rote. It was like, I'm going to study this, make sure I know it for the test, pass the class, and move on. And that's not what we want.
No, and it occurs to me, like, for example, I had some great history teachers. I love history, and it's probably because I had some great history teachers. I also have an uncle who I'm going to have to tell to listen to this episode. I have an uncle who was a history teacher, and he, before he retired, was an assistant principal in New York for a history department in a high school. And he, of course, had a great love of history, and he instilled that love of history in all the children, in my sisters and myself, in my children. He really helped us to embrace it. That being said, I remember my history classes in school being very, very dynamic. We did projects, we explored things, we had meaningful discussions, and that probably helped my ability to remember some of the facts. I think that when we look at kids and we simply modulate our voice so that they know what to tell us, or we subconsciously nod at the right answer, or we do it on purpose because we so want this child to get a win. You know what you need to do when you want a child to have a win? Set up something where the child can actually have a win on their own, and you're not prompting them. Resist the urge to prompt, and set something up where every child has a talent. Give them a win. Figure out what their talent is and play off of that so they get the win.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, there's no bigger win than after a child gets the answer incorrect a little bit and figures it out on his own. You'll never see bigger eyes on a kid or a bigger smile on a kid once they figure it out on their own, especially after you gave them the opportunity to go back, but to cue them, like, what win is that? Okay,
that's just a win for the adults, because then we can all move on with our day. That's not a win for children. I also am often disturbed by how often we set children up to be wrong, but that may be an episode for another day. They're going to have, we're talking, this podcast is for early learners, really. And early childhood is defined as birth through age 8. I think that beyond age 8, they're hopefully going to have a whole lifetime during which they can be right and wrong bazillion times. When they're very young, there are times where I want to set them up to be right so that they develop self-esteem and belief in themselves. So set it up, figure it out. I hope that this episode helps you to think about how you respond, children when they're right, when they're wrong, and the fact that you probably are prompting them and you don't even realize it. So just become more aware of your body language and your voice. And for goodness sake, please don't intentionally do that. Let them be wrong. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay if you know how to respond. If you know just to sort of say, you know, what you said has value, also this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel better now having gotten all of that out in the open, because Alison and I were talking about this topic the other day and we're like, oh gosh, I can't stand when I see that.
Yeah.
So if you have comments about this, Alison's going to let you know how to contact us. And, you know, don't go before the sign off, because I like the way that we sign it off. So go ahead, Alison, do your thing.
All right. Yeah. If you have comments, questions, or anything that you want to tell us at any time, you can reach us at our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. There's a comment section there. And you can also reach us on Facebook, How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast. You can message us there for any reason at all. You want to rate us 5 stars if your podcast provider allows that. And you can check
subscribe. You know what? Subscribe
on YouTube
so that we get benefits.
And I promise we'll be in different outfits next week. But
I hope so.
If you're watching on the YouTube.
Yeah, sure. But do you know how often I stand in front of my closet when we're going to record and I think, wait, did I wear that last week? So I can't promise you that.
I just did that. I seriously was like going to put on a different sweater, and I was like, wait, I think I wore that.
I think I wore that. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I haven't worn this one. If I did, you saw me in the same outfit 3 weeks in a row, and I apologize. Okay.
You know, the hazard of something like YouTube is this. You know, when I teach, when I consult or whatever, like when I'm in my consulting work, I often meet with teachers at least once a month. But I always feel like, well, they're not going to be sure if I wore this before. No one's paying attention to what I wore. And there's no way for them to look back to see if they're right. However, on YouTube, you can look at prior episodes and know if you're right about what we're wearing. And it's a little intimidating. So we promise we will try to be in different outfits next week, because this is it. We're not recording any more episodes today to keep them fresh. And we wish you much, much hope and some laughter. And we will catch you next time on the podcast.
Bye, peeps.